Hello there, Josh here from Racing to Profit. I hope you can hear me. In this video, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to look back at the Thyestes Chase on the 28th of January. I'm going to focus on Cocoa Beach and dive in, well, a quick look at him and a few other kind of things to take away possibly from the race. But mainly a kind of stats dive into Gordon Elliot and his record with horses in first time blinkers. So there's going to be a micro angle, and I'll jump over to my horse race base account and kind of dig into that. And then I'm going to jump over to the Skybet Chase in Doncaster a few days ago and look at taking risks, and specifically Nikki Richards' record with horses, with older horses, kind of age 10 to 12. He really is a master with the older brigade, and it looks quite deliberate that they keep on going. We may have well missed the boat many times in the last 2 or 3 years with that one, but something to take away there. And again, I may just touch on any other thoughts with that race and maybe one or two others at Doncaster also. Let's jump to Gorham Park, the Thyestes. I think this could be, famous last words, a muddy staying handicap chase in Ireland worth following. It's worth bearing in mind, I think, at this meeting, Robbie Power came back in off riding something in a previous race, I think, and reporting it as the heaviest ground that he could remember riding on. It certainly did look that way. You can see in a race like this a number of horses that failed to even get home. It was pretty tiring, and that's worth bearing in mind always for future when you may get similar going. But this is one of Ireland's premier handicap chases of the year. I landed, or the two biggies I landed on at 20s and 33s came third and fourth, but they don't pay the bills. Cocoa Beach returned at 8. He was kind of 7.5 in the morning. What can we learn from him other than Gordon Elliot's record with first time headgear, which I will touch on in a moment? I will just open up Cocoa Beach. I think it's always worth having a look back to try and project looking forward, I suppose, to always ram a few things into the analytical mind to pick up on. Obviously, it was Gordon Elliot and Gigginstown in a muddy staying handicap chase, which are always dangerous. Plenty of them are bought and bred for chasing in mind in the long term. This was a horse who was 1 from 13 in his career. The odd question, first blinkers really was the spark. Wasn't enough of a spark for me, which when you look at the stats I'm about to show you, having now researched them, is a bit questionable. But in any case, clearly a smart horse. Any horse in these kind of races which has been pitched into a Cheltenham festival or a festival race, Cheltenham Punchestown, is worth keeping an eye on. Second in that handicap back in March 19. Some decent efforts running in kind of non-handicaps graded races. That's always some kind of indication of what a trainer may think, especially one of the bigger boys or girls. He ran at Cheltenham again last March, an okay effort, 9th. Watching that back, that was a running on effort, big field, relentless pace, 2 miles 5 furlongs, soft at Cheltenham. I suppose that effort was some indication that he may turn into or develop into a 3-miler plus over fences. He returned this season. That pencil full of lead form is decent, actually. It would give some indication that the marquee one off here, 138, was very workable. Of course, that was only £4 higher than the effort in March 19. He's bigger, stronger, older horse now. Plenty of RPRs, as I've said numerous times before, above his current mark, which is always some kind of hook or something you can hang a kind of analytical approach around. Pitched into another grade one, so he had hot form here. Bumped into a horse who's now, I think, in the 150s, who won his next start and has run well in a couple of okay races since. Pitched into a grade one, but he was struggling to win. He then failed to win a couple of beginners chases. Here, the form only so-so. I actually, I watched back these races before I dived into this one. I read the Fairy House run wrong, as it turns out. I actually thought he was out on his feet more so there, and had questions over stamina in this kind of ground, which wasn't, a totally stupid idea. But he was unproven over a staying trip in heavy ground. But it was the blinkers. Jack Kennedy had the choice of most or nearly all of Gordon's, all of Gordon's in this, and picked him. So I suppose there were plenty of signals there, unexposed, could be anything still. First time blinkers, which can go one of two ways, and with first time headgear, as I will touch on in a moment, using stats and trainer records can be useful, and Elliott may well be one of the best, as we'll see in a moment. Low weights in really testing ground. Run Wild Fred is, he plugged on and stayed on. I wonder if he would be pitched into something like a soft ground Irish national maybe. He does look the sort that will just keep going and could stay even further. We can take away, some of his form was decent behind there, latest exhibition form lines, which is decent. So on and so forth. Again, on the back of a decent second, and RPR above his current mark. And Sean Flanagan, which I noted at the time, actually jumped off a Noel Mead horse, who's obviously his governor, to jump onto one for Gordon Elliot, and that did turn out to be significant because he ran second and plugged on also. So a few things there in terms of those horses before I jump over to Gordon Elliott's record with first time blinkers. Is there anything else I want to say having a look at this? Spyglass Hill probably raced with a choke out possibly, or did too much. Dunvegan certainly did. I thought he would run a lot better than he did, but he was too free, too gassy. The kind of false start and the second start, I'm not sure if that buzzed him up. He was never going to get home given how he went through the first part of the race. That PU there at Leopardstown, I think, can be excused by a bad error at the first fence. I'm not sure he wants to go left-handed. Looking back at some of this form, and some of it in kind of open company, or as he's got older, he's done well and he's run well on good ground and soft, maybe, and yielding to soft, as you can see there. Maybe a proper heavy bog isn't what he wants, but he's got a few decent form lines, and he definitely has a handicap chase in him somewhere, possibly right-handed, possibly better ground, and when he settles a bit better. But he's probably one to take forward from it, because I think he is well handicapped and has a decent pot in him. But in terms of taking forward for the future, Cocoa Beach obviously looks like he could have more wins in him if the headgear continues to work. That was the reason, I think, for the massive jolt and improving performance, and maybe the step up in trip and that tempo he has enjoyed also. But in terms of a stat and a micro to take away for the future, Gordon Elliot, as you can see there, I'm jumping over from GD's to horse race base there. First time the headgear, blinkers and visor. For those, I know many of you watching this use horse race base, so if you want to repeat this or save it. Horse running headgear 0, so this means we're looking at horses having their first start in this headgear. I've got age 3 to 8, which is basically 8 or younger. Elliot wouldn't have many 2-year-olds running. I'm not sure if he's had any ever on the flat, actually. I'm not 100% sure, but I doubt it. January, February, March, and I can build out this micro and take a look at that in more depth. But this is, I suppose, the main part of the winter season. The ground's probably soft. Plenty of Elliots and these winter horses like the mud. They're bred for it. They're bred for stamina. Obviously, there's lots of festivals and decent quality racing happening at this time of year. By this point in the season, the horses are fit. He's got to know them. The horses have maybe proved to him that they actually need headgear to be applied, and that's probably the case with Cocoa Beach. That have expected him to win a couple of races, his couple of starts before that run, but the blinkers made the difference. And yeah, we've got handicaps here, and you can see the stats. This is going back to 2009. All of these are different horses, obviously in their first time blinkers or visor. The stats are pretty solid. 11 from 31, 18 have placed, including the winners. 95 points to Betfair starting price, and 95 £100 profit if you'd have put £1 on all of them. And this is one of those angles which will keep ticking over. We have a quality trainer who gets quality horses to train, obviously, who generally have ability. He obviously knows what he's doing. He knows how to place them, and he clearly knows when to apply first-time headgear. So this is definitely an angle worth saving. It's one of those that just keep ticking along over the next 10 years, I should think, and you could just back it blind, arguably. I see no logical reason why it wouldn't continue, because he will continue to get the support of decent owners, even as Gigginstown kind of slow down and withdraw a little bit. He'll get bigger owners, other owners, and decent stock to perform with. So that's an angle which has kind of proven the test of time now, and hopefully, having missed out on Cocoa Beach, but making me look at Gordon's record with first blinkers and visor will be useful for the future. For those who like building systems, I mean, I could start again and kind of dig out and dig in, but you can look at, obviously every rule needs some logic and you need to think about things. You can see the record there in January, February, March. That's not to say he doesn't have winners at other times of year, but as a micro angle, unprofitable, and there's plenty of sense to my mind by the type of horse he has on the ground and the kind of main bulk of the winter season fit. Like I said, the horses have proved by this point they may need some assistance with first-time headgear, for why these 3 months here are a decent place to focus on. But you can look at his runners in first-time headgear at other times of the year, but again, backing them systematically hasn't been great so far. So that's that. You can look at the types of headgear. Actually, maybe I'll do that if I just remove this. I mean, the visor is only 1 from 1, but you can, like in horse race space, with any angle, you can get your start, the set of data. I had an idea. It's always good to have an idea. I looked at Cocoa Beach, first time blinkers. How does Gordon Elliot do with them? Yes, arguably should have done this before when analysing the race. Blinkers can, of course, go one of 2 ways, which is why looking at trainers is interesting, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. Most of the time, it sparks them up too much, and the horse doesn't do anything. But occasionally, when a trainer knows what they're doing, it can make a difference. What should I look at here? So you can see the blinkers record. You see cheek pieces, 2 from 31, minus 17. They're probably not as severe enough, or blinkers and visors are what you'd call extreme headgear. You've got small numbers here with hoods, which are generally used for kind of keen horses over racing, or those you want to dull their senses a bit rather than spark them up necessarily. But you can see, the blinkers and visor where it's at really with Gordon. I mean, age is one of those things. The idea of looking at those horses who are in an age bracket where they've still got more to come. I mean, 0.72 places isn't anything to get too head up on, I suppose, but if you look at some bigger numbers and kind of all through the year, the 9-year-old plus don't do that well, and by that point they may be regressing. And it might be more of putting the headgear on might be a kind of last chance, last roll of the dice, rather than doing it with a horse who may still have potential, still well handicapped, still more to come. If that makes sense, you can look at race type, of course. I've focused on just all handicaps really. That does include 1 winner on the flat, but you can see some of these other stats and different bits and pieces there. If I look at handicaps or non-handicaps, which are here just as a group, you can see the difference there. Makes plenty of sense in terms of handicaps, and that does include 1 winner at Dundalk. So you can look at the stats here, various different winners here. It does include a couple of winners at the Cheltenham Festival, Flax and Fair at 25s, Sard de Burley at 10s. So this is an angle worth keeping on side. I could just look at that stats as a kind of example of how difficult it is, and just break down by other trainers with those same rules. Now you could want to dig in a bit more, I suppose, but I can just order by train. As you can see, Elliott is kind of by far and above the best in terms of knowing when to apply said headgear. Richard Fahey, there are plenty of kind of all-weather runners, of course. Not these stats go back the last kind of 12 years, and not too much there. But if you've got a horse race base, you can dig into some of these. Of course, you're free to note down some of these other trainers: January, February, March. Evan Williams, that's not too bad a record. Various others, etc. You know, you're dealing with small numbers here, but you can pause this video, look in front of you, do whatever you want. But then you look to the likes of McCain, same angle as that. Elliott, just looking at different trainers, 3 from 38. You know, they all have winners. Nichols doesn't have the best, although profitable, so not too bad. But you know, Elliott is clearly way ahead. Especially at this time of year, with the types of horses he has. So that's an angle to take forward if you so wish. So that's something to take away, or a few things to take away from the Thyestes. If I jump over as quick as I can to the Skybet Chase, taking risks, superb. Callum Bewley dropped his whip after the third last. I don't know if that made a difference, given how he came back once taking risks got to him, and given how far he was ahead. I suspect it may have helped him build up a bigger lead over the last couple, and he may well have just clung on, because I'm not necessarily sure he was done for stamina. Actually, I'm still not sure on him. His trainer thinks he wants a couple more furlongs and further, and that he just keeps galloping. This ground on Doncaster, I still don't know what it was really. Sticky, I think it was that drying out gluey ground. I thought it would ride a lot better than it actually ended up doing. Plenty of the races fell apart, plenty of horses were legless come the end. It was that type of going which you either handle or you don't, but you don't really know if a horse is going to do so until you play them, obviously, and that kind of sticky, gluey going isn't recorded in the form book, although I'm not quite sure. It might complicate things even further. But Irite clearly, I mean, he has something in him. I'm not quite sure what. I wouldn't mind seeing him around the national fences, given how he travels and how he jumps. Some have suggested the Grand National rather than the Scottish National. I think they're going to try the Scottish National this year. I wouldn't mind, depending on how the rest of his season goes, from this mark, seeing him in the Butcher Chase next season if the ground wasn't too deep, just to see if he took to those fences. But that's an aside. Captain Nord brings some a kind of decent level to the form, given his form from that Newbury win, given how that form ties in with Venetia's very good horse for Rich and Susanna Ritchie. And you know, that helps give some substance, I think, to this race. And taking risks, the old boy has just galloped and outstayed them. Superb Nicky Richards performance. What else should I say before I jump over to him? Not much really, ran very well. One for the team. I'm not quite sure if he liked the ground. Maybe he could be better on better ground. He was a bit slow at his jumps. He's still inexperienced. I think 1-4-1. Mark may come down again. He will prove well handicapped over at fence at some point. As will Boldmere again. He absolutely smacked the first fence here. That knocked his rhythm. Done for. I think the yard have had a very quiet season. I'm not sure if there's illness about, and I'd need to check the stats on that. But this win here of 1-3-3, it was easy at Doncaster, good to soft. Maybe he wants better ground, I'm not quite sure. But it hasn't really gone for him yet this season. He would have won this Wetherby race if he hadn't have fallen, but some of these races, I suppose, aren't working out that well as yet. Maybe his form just isn't that great, but he will be winning another handicap chase at some point. His mark's going to come down another couple of pounds. So that's that, but again, something for the future as I tick round to 19 minutes. If I just do this from scratch, if I look at Nikki Richards, so I can type Richards there, Nikki Richards is here, V4 query tool here, and what am I going to look at? I am looking at age. So if I just scoot down here, you can break down that, you can kind of see his record 10 and older. If I just go, well, 10 to 12, you could look at that and go, well, 11-year-olds only 10 from 11, a loss there. There's no logical reason that I can think of looking at 10 to 12 to exclude 11-year-olds at the moment in terms of just looking at the older horses, just using those stats and ignoring 11-year-olds or saying, I'm going to focus on Nikki Richards' 7-year-olds 10 and 12. That's what they call, well, what I would call backfitting, and that ensures or gives very limited confidence moving forward that an angle may repeat itself or work again. You need logic for any rule or any idea, and if it doesn't exist, in my head anyway, it's best moving on. But that's 10 to 12-year-olds. We can see his overall record there. I like looking at, you can look at race type with these older horses. Again, these stats, I should say, go back all the way to 2008, which I've said before when looking at trainer stats and different things, you could arguably just go back 5 years. When you're looking at things like first headgear, where the data is even smaller, when you're looking at horses' age, especially the older horses, you're obviously not going to have massive sample sizes. But again, you can, look at 3, 5 year, 10-year periods, whatever. Maybe it does depend on the type of stat and type of micro angle you were looking at. But again, you can kind of see that it's with his chasers where the record is best, which kind of makes sense. I probably would think of Richards, well, as you can see looking at these stats, as a very, very good chase trainer. If I just break down by national hunt race type, you can see there's plenty of logic for chasers. That's where he focuses on getting that longevity out of them. Their race types I like looking at and focusing on as well. Again, you're starting to build up a pretty decent, especially the profit, kind of angle to keep on side here. You can further break down by all sorts of different things if you wanted. I like looking at class. I generally like focusing on class 1 to 3 anyway. You can see this class 6 will be hunted chases, but class 4 and 5 not so much. Class 1 to 3, they've obviously got a decent level of ability. They might be more regular winners, maybe more consistent, but a touch of class, which is never a bad place to focus. So focusing on, again, classes 1 to 3 is fine, or some angles you'll see 4 to 5. Just picking if class 1 was good, class 3 was good, and class 5 was good. Just then picking those 3 classes. Again, that would be backfitting in my mind, but groups of classes make sense. And you can see, he's generally dealing with horses that have more ability, probably like winning more. So it's a good way to kind of bring focus as well. So Nikki Richards, age 10 to 12, class 1, 2 and 3, and you can see there, not necessarily a micro angle you would back systematically, although you can make your own judgments on those stats, but certainly as a way in, and having it as knowledge in our minds that Nicky Richards, age is no barrier. He said something in an interview after this Thyestes win, Skybet Chase win, that it's a deliberate tactic not to over race his horses. He especially his chasers when they're younger. He likes them to get better as they get older, and that's certainly the case. Taking risks since he turned 10, has won a Scottish National, thankfully we were on. I haven't bagged him to victory since, but then the rehearsal chase in November 19, and now the Skybet Chase. Quite the performance from the horse, quite the training performance. Second run after a win dot, tinkering with things as they get older. That was only this horse's 21st chase, which for a 12-year-old you would think is quite low. But again, that's some testament to Richards as a method of not over racing some of his chasers and wanting to, getting longevity out of them, making them want to last and still perform at a decent level as they rattle on into their veteran years. There's talk of having another go at the Scottish National, but you would think if he can keep up this level of form, he's got that. They could target the Vet Series, for example, next year. I'd need to check on his record going right-handed. I'm not sure if he's probably his best left, but I'd need to take a closer look at that. But in any case, underpinning logic, if we look at the stats by any kind of angle like this, you can look at the horse. and you want to check that it's not, with these there are, as you can see, there's a handful of horses. Monet's Garden would be the best of the lot, probably, I suppose, taking risks now with 4, but just how we can get multiple wins out of some of these older horses. Some of these down here you would think in time, I need to check, some of these are probably not still in training, are they? But a few of them are, may add to these wins even further in time. And you've got other ones down here. And Reaver's Lad, I think, was he recent tip on the blog, who was tanking along and fell, but again, another testament to the trainer. He's going to win chases, and so on and so forth. So a few of these, as his horses get older, he's always going to have a conveyor belt of chasers getting into the veteran stage for as long as he continues training. So that's certainly an angle worth keeping on. You could dig a bit further, I suppose, if you wanted, and try and drive up that win strike rate if you so wished, but as a way in, as a starting point, as a foundation for knowing a trainer who does well with older horses, especially if you look at, for example, when looking at these, you can look at age restrictions, because obviously since the vets races came in, they're the kind of, well, I think the 9-year-old plus, or certainly the 10-year-old plus age restriction range. So a lot of these in 4-year-old and 5-year-old plus are the non-vets races, which he clearly does very well in. And maybe when he puts a horse in a vets race, they really have run their race, so to speak. Maybe that's something. They're small numbers, but certainly in open races, you would normally, with generally looking at a top level race like the Skybet, as a top level handicap, look at a horse age 12 and 11 and think, surely not. Clearly, when they're trained by Nikki Richards, that is not the right attitude and approach to have, and actually flip it round the other way, given his ability to keep getting the best out of them. So that's something to hopefully take away. I could finish by, if I just get rid of Nikki Richards, so we're looking at all chases age 10 to 12, class 1 to 3. This is all the way back to 2007-8. We could look at other trainers to finish. Again, if you've got notepads at the ready, if I sort by wins high to low, you can see here there's plenty here who have a lot of runners in that age range. You can't back them all, obviously, systematically. Nikki Richards is by far the best in terms of, he is the best in terms of win strike rate, certainly of those that have had a decent number of runners, and profit, and backing to Betfair starting price in particular. But you can see some of the trainers here who do okay with such runners. I'm just scanning down. Fergal, we know he does pretty well with older horses, in fairness, and is another one to always keep an eye on. So on and so forth. Ender Bolger, not too bad in terms of strike rate, but profit. Morris Barnes doesn't do too bad. So there's a few here you could dig down with. You're getting into smaller numbers now, obviously, but nothing stopping you looking at some of those if you so wished. Sandy Thompson, as we know, and See You at Midnight's a classic example of that. 7 from 60 would need a bit more digging and refining. Maybe it could be Staying Chasers, for example, possibly the place to focus on there. But certainly no reason to be proud of his. Graham McPherson has done okay from a small set. Again, when digging through these to make sure all these wins aren't just one horse. Most trainers do pretty well at getting kind of extending horses' racing careers. Alex Hales may be another one there. You can go down, so on and so forth. You can exclude the vets races if you want, the age restrictions at 10-year-old and older, and look at kind of the wider all rules races, non-vets races, or just look at vets races, etc. There's various different things you can do there, but hopefully I have said something useful there. I've been going on long enough. This isn't going to be longer than 30 minutes, which is good. Hopefully, yes, as always, I have said something or demonstrated something of use for you to take away and ponder in the future, whether it's race analysis, things to consider, or if it's just Gordon Elliott's record with first-time blinkers and visor with those rules, chases in January, February, March, handicaps in January, February, March, or Nicky Richards with horses aged 10 to 12, class 1 to 3 in chases. But yes, with that said, Thanks for watching. As always, any comments you can post below. If you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, I think there's a button somewhere if you're watching this on YouTube where you can hit subscribe and you'll get a notification when a new video is posted. And with that said, yes, thanks for watching. Until the next time, this is Josh saying bye for now.